If this attack were not successful, it would be years before we could launch another big offensive. So they had at least some sort of gung-ho fervor. They sort of believed in what they were fighting, and to the extent that the North and the communists believed they were fighting an evil America, America certainly did act like it was very shy and not morally confident, didn't it? Some of the North Vietnamese army preparations for its big offensive were evident to the U.S. and the South Vietnamese intelligence. Now, it talks quite a bit about that. We skip a ways down. CIA analysts discovered evidence of unusual activity in North Vietnam. Articles on the advantages of mechanized warfare that had been appearing in the North Vietnamese press caught the attention of some Americans, as did reports of stepped-up recruitment and growing infiltration of men and material to the south. So, they had a press. It wasn't a free press, but they did have a press. And what was the talk of the day? You know, why should we be in tanks instead of on foot? Not only were the infiltrators more numerous, they were moving south in October and November, unseasonably early. This meant that the NVA was taking advantage of the earliest possible moment after the monsoon season to push troops down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. This was the same kind of early movement that preceded the NVA's big offensives in 65 and 68. These early warning signs were detected at the lower levels of the CIA, but were not included in the agency's official reporting to the President and other selected officials. Why? The NVA had installed a sort of informational safety valve when planning the offensive. To ensure secrecy, headquarters in Hanoi did not pass information about the overall nature of the offensive to any lower command. Troops in Cambodia, for example, had no idea of the orders for their comrades in arms assembled along the DMZ and vice versa. Therefore, an agent the CIA relied on in the headquarters of the Southern Communist Command had little idea of the overall size and direction of NVA activities. He too was in the dark, so the lower-level CIA reports were inherently myopic. Okay, skip a little ways. Some of those at the lower levels in the CIA thought that they saw clearly that a mechanized assault was in the offing, but others disagreed. Since the agency could not develop anything like a clear consensus, it declined to predict a major offensive. Right? We'll only speak out if we have a consensus. Shortly before the NVA invasion, the CIA sent to the President and other senior government officials and leaders a memorandum stating that a series of high-point attacks by the enemy was coming, but there would be no major assault in 1972. So there's an attack on the way. It's just not going to be coming anytime in the next 12 months. Okay, we skip down to page 124. It talks about a guy who, his name was Eskelson, was to monitor the frequencies on which the North conducted their communications for their armored divisions and transport battalions. And they heard traffic one day at 22 megahertz, or 2200 megahertz or whatever, 22, and they reported it, and they were not told to continue monitoring it, so they didn't continue monitoring it. Anyways, if they would have continued monitoring it, they would have known that almost 1,000 of the new tanks that had been given to North Korea from China and Russia, almost 1,000 of them had been transported south, moved south. So that would have been, quote, that might have confirmed the minority CIA opinion that the NVA was moving to a new type of warfare. Now, I want to pause there for just a second. What about today, and what about the possibility that we might face that sort of a shift with Islam? You say, well, there's no major military powers backing Islam the way that there was a major military power backing communism. Russia was backing communism. Well, we do have Saudi Arabia, which is a major military power because America gives its weapons to them. So, and Iran is wealthy, if not a major military power. And is it going to be the case that the Muslim ragtag guerrilla bands spread throughout the world and being chased helter-skelter by American forces will, if we don't destroy them and stop their type of warfare, will eventually, 10, 20 years down the road, become more well-armed, get hold of an actual nation-state, let's say, or support from a major nation-state? Well, we will see. We will see. There's historical precedent for it. Saigon headquarters sent small, long-range teams of 3 or 4 men into the Mugai and Ban Korai pass areas of Laos to check visually on the traffic pushing down from North Vietnam. Now, in order to gather information on this, they had been flying troops in by helicopter into the area, but they had to stop that because of the mortality rate. So they started doing HALO operations, H-A-L-O, high altitude, low opening. And what that means is they, quote, they go to the jump area at night in a special black painted C-130 Hercules transport, flying at an altitude of 20,000 feet to escape detection from the ground. Team members jumped at the high altitude, but to reduce the chances of their descent being seen, delayed opening their parachutes until only a few hundred feet above the ground. A captain assigned to one of those studies, Studies and Observation Groups, SOG, Study Observation Group, parachuted into the middle of a heavily built-up area during the summer of 1971. And here's what he says about their experience. We came up to the road system southwest of Chepon, about 4 or 5 clicks. It was one of the biggest truck, tank, and people parks I have ever seen. And his report was added to the pile of evidence. And even on all that, they didn't catch the attack. Now, in the absence of a CIA having a consensus about what's going on, the military tried to form its own, but it had internal dissension, and they couldn't come to any agreement. They did decide that the enemy was working on some sort of a large offensive, probably in February. The CIA said it won't come in 72, and the Army says it's probably going to come in early 72. And it would concentrate on the central highlands and the northmost provinces. Other people were doubtful if this is what the Army's come up with. General Abrams was convinced and stoutly supported the assessment in a series of weekly intelligence evaluation updates, labeled WEIUEs, pronounced woos. On one occasion, Abrams seized a pointer from the hand of a Navy intelligence officer in mid-briefing, called for a series of graphics to be flashed on the side screen, and rattled off detail after detail while popping the screen with the pointer at each item. He raised his voice and got red in the face, one officer remembers. Some staff officers disagreed with the estimate, but he stuck with his arguments. Well, there's somebody in the face of all the groupthink and laziness, somebody saying they are getting ready to attack. We skip a bit. However flawed their information was, by early February of 1972, the Americans and South Vietnamese were aware that an offensive from the north was likely, if not imminent. With memories of 1968 still strong in their minds, it's 5 years ago, you know, both military and civilian officials expected that the strike would come during or near the Tet holiday. They made no secret of their expectations, and by mid-February, speculation of fighting to come was prevalent in the press. The Tet holidays came and went. So it wasn't like the Tet offensive. We skip a paragraph. For their part, American and South Vietnamese officials let the passing of the Tet holiday in peaceful calm cause them to relax and to turn their efforts back to the concerns of pacification, Vietnamization, and the American withdrawal. Oh, phew. Well, that big attack didn't come during the Tet holiday. We can relax. Huh? The failure of the North Vietnamese Army to strike when it was expected to strike did at least give the senior South Vietnamese and Americans time to strengthen their position and improve their troop posture. So they did. Okay, the imminent attack didn't come. We've got even more time.